Stanton, the headmaster at Oakdale Academy, and I'm here in a very empty gymnasium on this Monday afternoon at Oakdale. And as you can imagine, it's empty because here in Michigan, as well as in many other states, we are prohibited from having classes through the next 3 weeks. Now, in many ways, we want to make sure that we answer a very important question, and it is, what should our response be as a school? What should our response be as a classical Christian school to this pandemic? And how are we going to ensure that we fulfill our mission, which is to instill character, truth, and wisdom in our students in order to prepare them for a life of service to God, family, community, and country through classical Christian education that becomes very difficult when there are no students in the building. And I can tell you, as an educator for over 20 years, it is not the same in a building without seeing 130 students wandering through our halls every day. Well, I want to paint a picture that I was able to work through our faculty and staff with this morning. And it's a picture of how Christians typically have responded throughout history to epidemics, to plagues, and to a myriad of other horrible issues that have plagued this fallen world. And what they ultimately all do is they remind people that these pandemics, these diseases, are the result of living in a fallen world that has revolted against its creator. And so when we think about how things have unfolded, I direct you to the Antonine Plague of the 2nd century that killed about a quarter of the population of the entire Roman Empire. And it was the Christians who went out and cared for the sick and the wounded. If you fast forward to the plague of the 3rd century, the Cyprian Plague, it was so called because one of the bishops of the time was giving such colorful descriptions of it as he admonished Christians to go out. Another bishop at the time, Dionysius, said these words, that Christians, heedless of danger, took charge of the sick, attending to their every need. Now understand, this was a time that most historians believe that 5,000 people a day died throughout Rome. If you go back to the Black Death, it was Martin Luther in 1527 who refused to leave Wittenberg, the result of which was that his own daughter Elizabeth died. Luther wrote a tract called Whether Christians Should Flee the Plague, and he gave very clear direction. Christian doctors cannot abandon hospitals, Christian pastors could not abandon their congregation, and Christian governors could not flee their districts. Well, what do we do as Christian educators in a time like this? As Christian educators, we do not abandon our posts. Education is going to look very different over the next few weeks at Oakdale and across the country. But we will focus on an online learning environment that still does its best to instill character, truth, and wisdom to our students. We'll encourage our students to think and to pray, how can they best be servants of God? This is really an opportunity for us that our mission statement says we will instill in our students that those traits, character, truth, and wisdom, but why? So that they can choose to live a life of service. It's really what it's about. It's no longer just about the philosophical. It's about the practical. Do we cower in fear and panic? No, that's not what we're called to do. We're called to take a life of service, the opportunity that the Lord gives us, and to provide it to our students in a way that they can choose to continue in that life of service. We're called to remember the words that Paul wrote in 2 Timothy 1:7. God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. So what is education going to look like? Well, we're figuring it out as best we can here at Oakdale, but I can promise you this. It will be the same quality. It'll be from the same master teachers, and it'll be at the same level that our parents would expect. It'll be done in a loving and caring way so that we continue to instill character, truth, and wisdom in our students despite the fear gripping our nation and the rest of the world. I encourage all of our families to pray for our leaders in government, to pray for the president, our leaders in Congress, our governor, and the leaders in the state legislature, to pray for the United States Public Health System Commission Corps, and all those who are working to figure out how best to handle, contain, and attack this virus. But mostly, I encourage us to be prayerful in how God is inviting us to move into people's lives, to have conversations that we might not normally have, to share the love of Christ with others who are questioning, why is this happening? As churches themselves are not able to meet regularly, let us spend time worshiping on our own, worshiping in the small gatherings we're allowed to do, not out of fear, but truly out of praise and thanksgiving for the Lord. This is not the worst thing our world will face. This is not the worst thing many of us will face in our lives. We want to provide some regularity. We want to provide some predictability for our students. So to the families at Oakdale, you will get some information from me over the next 24 hours as to how this space, though still empty, will be filled with learning, even virtually. We're excited to be able to continue the education that God has given us in the mission in very unique ways. I'm proud to lead a faculty and staff that is so dedicated to ensuring that we continue quality classical Christian education even when we can't be together. And I'm just thrilled that we have such dedicated teachers and staff members who are doing their utmost today and tomorrow to ensure that that will take place starting this Wednesday. Thank you so much for all of you who've prayed for Oakdale and the disappointments in many ways that we've faced over the last few days, canceling a trip to Europe for our juniors and seniors, even postponing our Liberty Campaign dinner with Jace Robertson from A&E's Duck Dynasty. I was blessed to have Jace in my office with members of our board when he said, I just need to tell you, Michigan needs Jesus, and I'm coming back. And we're proud to let you know that indeed Jace will be back on June 12th for our rescheduled Liberty dinner, and ask you to consider joining us at that evening once the details are released. All in all, this is going to be one of the best times that Oakdale Academy and classical Christian education can have, because we're determined, we're focused on the fact that we still have an opportunity to show our students what a life of service is like. Thank you so much for listening. Continue to look at oakdaleacademy.com and here on our social media channels as we continue to get updates throughout this week. And God bless you as you go through the rest of your day.